Hey, I'm Jusko from ProudMoney.com, and in this video we are going to take an updated look at which credit card companies are most likely to give you a higher credit limit and which are more likely to give you lower credit limits. But before we do any of that, I'm going to ask you to please subscribe to this YouTube channel if you have not already, and if you have already, I thank you for doing so. We did a similar video a couple of years back looking at which credit card companies were more likely to give you higher and lower credit limits, both as a starter when you are first getting your credit card, and then also maybe which ones were more amenable to sort of opening the floodgates over time if you used their cards or if you showed some good payment behavior. So we're going to take sort of an updated look with some new data points, both from my own credit cards and from plenty of data that I have gotten from people commenting on that previous video and other videos as well. So it is hard to do an across-the-board comparison in some ways because some of the credit card companies are going to sort of treat everyone not the same in terms of the credit lines you get, but they're going to treat you the same in terms of whether they are more or less generous, where some credit card companies are going to be very generous to the top end of the market, people that have really good credit scores and high income, and they're going to be pretty stingy to people on the lower end of the market, and we'll talk about that as we go along. So let's get right into it. Number one on the list, the most generous of credit card issuers. If you can become a member of Navy Federal Credit Union, they are well known to be very generous with those credit lines, even if you don't have much credit history. Now, I don't have a membership to Navy Federal. I don't qualify, but I have heard so many people say this that I can still with confidence put them at the number one spot on this list. Many people talking about getting even $10,000 with their first credit card, and beyond that, if you have some credit history, getting up into the tens of thousands from Navy Federal. So if you qualify for Navy Federal Credit Union, they are going to do their best, it seems, to get you a pretty healthy credit line. Number two on the list, American Express. Now, if you have some credit history under your belt, American Express will oftentimes be pretty generous with you right off the bat in terms of those credit lines that you get from them. If you are someone newer to credit, American Express might not give you exactly what you were hoping for right out of the gate, but if they see that you are using the card and you are making your payments on time, often you can get that credit limit increased in a very short period of time. 60 days is sort of the minimum time that you could ask American Express to increase your limit, and sometimes people will see their limits double or even triple at that point if they've been using the card. So American Express might want to see a little bit of a track record with you, but they're oftentimes going to be generous from that point on if you are using their card and they think they can keep you as a long-term customer. Now, American Express has sort of traditional credit cards that you can easily revolve the balances every month, and then they have their charge cards where in the old days you had to pay them off every month. Now it's a little more complicated where you can revolve some of your balances. But the charge cards, those being the American Express Platinum, the American Express Gold, and the American Express Green, are cards that don't have a preset spending limit, which some people think of it just means unlimited, which it doesn't mean. So I'm not going to say that if you get one of those cards, you have no credit limit, and so that means that, you know, that should be the number one out there, because there still is a credit limit, even if it is unspoken. And in fact, I was curious today to see how much American Express would let me charge on my American Express Platinum card, and that doesn't mean I went out and charged a whole bunch of stuff until, you know, they stopped me. What I did was I went into my account where it says preset spending limit. It also says something about your spending power, and they have a tool on there where you can say, hey, I want to buy something of this amount. Are you going to let me, you know, actually put that charge through? And so I used that tool, and I started out at $15,000, and they said, yeah, we'll let you do that $15,000. And I said, well, how about 10 times that? How about $150,000? Will you put that charge through? And they said, dude, we're not doing that. And so I went back and I put in $75,000, and they were okay with $75,000 as well. So I thought, okay, maybe that dividing line is right when you get into the six figures. So then I put in $99,000, trying to see if that was going to be the last place where maybe they would say yes. And the whole tool shut down and decided that maybe I was doing something that I should not be doing, and there was suspicious activity. So I don't know exactly what my limit is on that Platinum where they would still let me charge something, but I still could buy something for $75,000. Number 3 on this list is Chase. Now, when I did this video a couple years ago, I put Chase ahead of American Express, but I kind of changed my mind since then. Chase has been very generous to me. I have 3 Chase cards, and between the 3, I have over $50,000 of credit available to me. All 3 of the cards over $10,000 limits, one of them an over $20,000 limit. So if you are sort of on the high end and you have a good track record with Chase and you have a decent income, you can get a lot in terms of those credit limits. And obviously you can get a lot even spread over multiple cards. But if you're sort of newer to credit, Chase is not necessarily going to be as generous. It's not always super easy to even get in with Chase to begin with. And oftentimes when you get your first Chase credit card, you're not going to get a super high credit limit to start off with. So Chase is something where you almost have to build over time. And I don't even think they're really all that great about credit limit increases. It's almost like when you get multiple Chase cards or you get new Chase cards over time, you'll see those credit lines go up. So in the early years, Chase not necessarily great, but once you've established some credit history, Chase will give you a lot of money. Numbers 4 and 5 I'm going to lump together, and those are Citi and Wells Fargo. I think they are sort of in the same ballpark. For me personally, that means when I get one of their credit cards, I usually on average am getting around a $10,000 credit line, which is plenty, but it's not as much as Chase and American Express might throw at me. If you have less of a credit history or less income, you might not get as high of a credit line from them as I am throwing out there when I say $10,000, but I think that's kind of where they fit. Below Chase and American Express, but still fairly generous. Now from here things get a little murkier. Number 7 on my list is Capital One. Now Capital One is one of those issuers that I kind of talked about earlier. On the high end, they'll give you a lot. On the low end, you might get very little, and it might be very difficult to get any increases as time goes on. So Capital One, a couple years ago, I got their Saver card, and they gave me $30,000 as a credit limit right out of the gate. I had a little track record with Capital One, but I had a Quicksilver card I hadn't used in a few years. I don't remember what the credit line was on that, but boom, $30,000 they gave me. Now, for many other people, they heard that and were like, $30,000 from Capital One? Because Capital One, if you don't have as much credit history, maybe you don't have as much income, if you are trying to sort of rebuild your credit history, you might end up with a card from them where they're only giving you $500 or $1,000 or something like that, and you might find that it is difficult to get that credit line increased over time, even if you have made all your payments on time and you're doing everything right with Capital One. So Capital One is sort of a tough one to pin down when you say, are they generous or not generous? It really depends on your circumstances. Number 7 on the list, and I think I called the last one number 7, but this one really is, and that is the Apple Card issued by Goldman Sachs. Goldman Sachs recently also bought the GM card portfolio, and so they might be getting into some others as well here in the future. But as I make this video, the Apple Card is what they mostly do. And for people that have gotten the Apple Card, especially people that maybe don't have as much credit history, they have been pleasantly surprised with the credit limits that they have gotten. For me personally, it was kind of a credit limit that fit in with a lot of the other cards that I have in the 7, 8, 9 range. I can't remember exactly what mine is, but a lot of people without a lot of credit history have said they got $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 right out of the gate with that Apple Card, and they were pleasantly surprised to get it higher than any other cards that they have. So far Goldman Sachs and Apple have been pretty generous. Number 8 on this list is Discover, and I think Discover is difficult to pinpoint in the same way that Capital One is, but maybe for a different reason. Discover oftentimes is going to maybe not start you off with the greatest credit line in the world, but they are going to be good maybe with credit line increases, and also sometimes they are going to look for a certain type of customer and maybe surprise them with a bigger credit line than you would think. Discover has sort of figured out who their customer is. I think it's people with sort of middle income. They've got decent credit history, but not necessarily exceptional credit history, don't have a lot of other credit cards. Discover wants you to make Discover your #1 card. And if you do so, you can be very much rewarded from Discover. So for me, Discover is my worst credit line. I have a lot of credit cards, and when I got my Discover card, they gave me less than $4,000. That's way less than any other credit card that I have. But I think they could see I have all these credit cards. I probably wasn't going to make Discover my #1. Other people will tell you that their Discover card started at a decent place and it moved up and up and up over time, because if Discover sees that you are using their card, they are going to continually reward you. And Discover has good customer service. They make people feel good who are their customers. And for a lot of people, if they start with Discover and they're getting these credit limit increases and they're feeling good about the customer service, they just stay with Discover and Discover just keeps rewarding them. This is part of the reason that Discover really never offers any new credit cards. They have figured out who that customer is that they want, and they just hammer and hammer and hammer away at that customer, satisfying those people, and Discover has been very profitable. It's been 3, 4, 5 years since Discover came out with a new credit card. So if you are a customer that Discover likes, you could be handsomely rewarded. If you are a customer that carries a ton of different credit cards and Discover sees that you're not really using yours very much, well, then they're not going to be giving you a higher credit limit. Numbers 9 and 10 on this list, US Bank and Bank of America, I'm going to kind of lump together. Both of these are relationship banks, so you can get generous credit lines from them, but oftentimes they want to see you have a further relationship beyond credit cards, savings accounts, checking accounts, CDs, investments, that sort of thing. So if you have more of a relationship, you are more likely to get approved for their cards and more likely to get the higher credit lines that you want. So you can get high credit lines, but they're not necessarily going to be as easy to get as they would be with some of these other card companies. Number 10 is Synchrony Bank. Now, Synchrony Bank is a little bit different than the other credit card companies because most of the cards they offer are going to be issued in partnership with other retailers. So you have the Verizon Visa, PayPal Cashback MasterCard, Venmo Visa, and there are a lot of retail store cards that they do. The cards that Synchrony issues for the most part are going to be sort of easier to get your hands on, so it's not surprising that the credit lines that they are giving out are usually going to be less than the other issuers we're talking about. Last on the list is Barclays. Now, Barclays used to have its own sort of suite of credit cards. These days, it's more like a Synchrony Bank or Comenity Bank in that most of the cards it issues are going to be for retailers or for airlines, that sort of thing. Barclays is not necessarily bad in terms of the credit lines that they give you initially. I think the thing that drives some people crazy is that Barclays is known at times to cut your credit lines if they see something on your credit report that they don't like, and it doesn't necessarily have to be with them. So you could be making your payments on time and not doing anything wrong with your Barclays cards, but if you ran up some debt on a different credit card or you got too many new credit cards, sometimes that makes them a little squeamish and they might lower your credit limit on their cards. So that's obviously not across the board, but that's why I put them a little lower on the list. Now, that's obviously not all the credit card issuers out there, but those are the ones that I feel like I have either enough personal experience with or enough data points from others to have a real opinion about. USAA and PenFed, Pentagon Federal Credit Union, I have mostly heard good things about in terms of their credit lines, but I don't necessarily feel like I have enough information to know about them. If you have more, please put that in the comments, or about any of these cards. And then there are the regional banks as well, PNC, TD Bank, and others that, again, I don't feel like I necessarily have enough knowledge about to really talk about. So again, if you know anything, put it in those comments. So a video like this is going to be art as much as science in terms of trying to kind of come up with a ranking based on both my own personal experience and the experiences of others. I would love to know how you would rank the credit card companies that you have experience with based on those credit lines that you got when you opened your cards or when the credit line increases came or didn't come as you carried the cards for longer. Put all that in the comments section and I would appreciate it, and I'm sure other people watching this video would appreciate it as well. Otherwise, I thank you for watching, and as always, please go to proudmoney.com where we do credit card reviews and we talk personal finance and we talk deals and all sorts of other fun stuff too. Thanks for watching. Bye.